Shalom WJC family. It's time for our weekly Torah Talk. This week we will be reading Parshat Vayigash, and in it we'll have the culmination of the Joseph story. We were left last week on a cliffhanger. Joseph had just planted a cup in his brother Benjamin's sack and discovered it now and accuses him of thievery, presumably to get Benjamin to stay with him. We don't think he was going to throw him in jail, although the motivations are in fact never really made clear. And so it says, Judah, Vayigash Yehuda, Judah came close to, he approached to Vayigash Elav Yehuda, he approached Joseph. And I talked about this earlier this week in a congregational meeting. I wanted to share it because ultimately from this Parsha Vayigash, I think we get some very, very important information. In fact, we understand from Vayigash, or I believe we can understand from Vayigash, why we are known as a people as Bnai Yisrael. Right? We could be Bnai Avraham, the children of Avraham. We could be Bnai Yitzchak. We could be not Bnai anything, right? Just Yisraelim, just the Israelites. We could be Bnai Leah and Bnai Rachel and Bnai Bilcha and Bnai Zilpa, if we want to go with this. Why are we named after these brothers and this generation? And why is being children our name, our lot? So this idea of coming close is very important, right? And so we have in the episode, eventually, Yehuda pleads on behalf of his brothers, says, you can't take Benjamin, our father. There's no point in us going home if you take Benjamin. Our father loves him so. You may as well just lock all of us up. And Joseph, in a very dramatic scene, sends all of the Egyptian couriers away, right? He says, we are going to everyone leave me. And he says, again, the same verb like Vayigash, right? He says to his brothers, come close to me. And then he says, right, so he says, Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph, Ani Yosef, Ha'od Avichai, is my father still alive? V'lo yachlu echav la'anot oto ki nifhalu mipanav. And the brothers could not answer him. They couldn't speak because they were so nifhal, shocked, dumbfounded, surprised, embarrassed, ashamed. Maybe they couldn't even process. It was so shocking, the information that was before them. And then Joseph says to them, Geshu na elai, come close to me, right? Vayigash, approach me, come close to me. And he goes ahead and he tries to give them proof that he is who he is. He says the whole story. Remember, you threw me in the pit. You told me to the Ishmaelites. You wouldn't believe what's happened to me since then. Now, I think he's trying to make them understand that he's who he is, but they might hear this as like, yeah, we remember the history. We're embarrassed, right? Ultimately, after telling the whole story, they still seem unable to speak, to recognize their brother. He approaches Benjamin and he grabs him around the neck and he starts to weep on Benjamin's neck. And he wept and Benjamin wept. And then he goes to each brother and gives them a kiss and weeps with his brother. And then, only then, after this emotional connection with no words, but a recognition, the hug and the crying together, Dibru Echavito, the brothers could speak. Somehow, in that moment, something changed. When they could witness the face of their brother, right? To come close. The words didn't matter, but the recognition that in a face, that a face demands a certain recognition of fraternity, of humanity, that we have obligations, responsibilities to recognize and treat the face in a certain way. This is the philosophy of Emmanuel Levinas, the great late 20th century French Jewish philosopher, right? He said that the face of the other demands our obligation to it. And when the brothers see that it's Joseph, when they touch, feel, cry, suddenly they are they are connected again, and they can speak. Just after that, it's the Pharaoh hears about Joseph meeting his brothers, and he summons them and he says, go get your father, take wagons full of goods and whatnot. And then it says, Vaya'asu ken Bnei Yisrael. Now, prior to this point in the Torah, there are only a few times, 3 in fact, that I could find, where the term Bnei Yisrael is used to refer to these brothers. Right? So, they're called Bnei Yaakov. They're called each individually as the Bnei Leah, the Bnei Rachel, and so on and so forth. But we don't see Bnei Yisrael until here. And those prior examples are a little bit different, right? We get one after Jacob wrestles the angel, and it says he hurt his thigh, and he says, up until now we still don't eat the gid hanasheh, the sciatic tendon here, because of that. Bnei Yisrael don't do that. It seems to be a later gloss already referring to Bnei Yisrael as a people, not necessarily to these brothers. Later in the list of the Edomite kings in chapter 36, it says, and the Edomite kings ruled before Bnei Yisrael had kings. Again, not talking about the brothers, but some kind of later gloss referring to Bnei Yisrael already as a people. And then at the beginning of our story, when it says that they come to beg for food, it says Bnei Yisrael. The first time they're united in their need. And it does say at the beginning of our story, chapter 42:5, at the beginning of this episode, when they first come to Egypt seeking help from Joseph, it refers to them as Bnei Yisrael. And then not again for 3 chapters until our verse 45:21. Something about this moment of recognition, of being able to see the brother in the other, of being able to recognize the humanity in the face, and being able to connect through emotion and weeping together and laughing together and embrace. Something about that changed them from these disparate brothers to Bnei Yisrael. And it was all 12 of them being together, different as each of them are, that bonds them into the community, the congregation of Bnei Yisrael. And that, I believe, is why we are called Bnei Yisrael, because we too are a disparate group of people. It is hard to find the commonalities sometimes between 2 Jewish people, 2 members of Bnei Yisrael. And yet, we feel this link, we feel this fraternity, we feel this bond. And a congregation, WJC, this congregation, or any congregation really is at its best when we are interacting on that level. Not that we all agree on everything. And let's face it, it's a complicated world, it's a complicated faith, it's a complicated people. We're not all going to agree, and that's okay. We're not supposed to. That's not what it means to be Bnei Yisrael. That's not what it means to come together as a congregation, as a community. It means to recognize our differences and love each other anyway, feel responsible to each other anyway, recognize the face of each and every one of us. And this goes for our Jewish brothers and sisters and for all of humanity. But to interact on that level that we witnessed today in Parshat Vayigash, this week in the Parsha of Parshat Vayigash, and to, in that recognition, to understand that we are joined together as a community, as a congregation, in our responsibility to each other and in our responsibility to all the faces out there. That ultimately, that's why we're called Bnei Yisrael. That's why we are the children, this generation of the children of Israel, that we are united as family, a Jewish family, a human family, a family of people obligated to one another. May we be inspired by our name. May we be inspired by that mission. And ultimately, may we fulfill the destiny of Bnei Yisrael to bring more holiness into the world and to do tikkun olam, to make this world a better place for us and for all people. Shabbat shalom.